Now we move to the next agenda is the welcoming speech by Head of Educational Development Department, Mrs. Dr. Anasari Mustafa, SKM MSc. Or Mrs. Anasari, please proceed to the stage.
Terima kasih. I would like to Mbak Wanda to thank the host for delivering this opening. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Mbak, apakah suara saya terdengar?
Terdengar, Bun.
Terdengar ya? Oke, baik. What I'm proud of are the speakers of the guest lecturer, Student Association of Diplomatry Midwifery Study Program, Polytechnic of Health, Ministry of Health, Malang, held by the Health Polytechnic of Malang. Head of the Department Midwifery of Health Polytechnic, Ministry of Health Malang, Ibu Herawati Mansur. Head of Diplomatry, my Midwifery Study Program, Ibu Rita Yulipa, and all staff. And midwifery lecturer and students who attend this guest lecture, as well as other heavy invitees. Thank you, and our respect goes to Dr. Elvira, representative from United Nations Fund for Population Activities, who have supported funding for the Center of Excellence Diplomatry Midwifery Program at the Malang Health Polytechnic. And Alhamdulillah, with gratitude for the presence of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, today's activities that have been planned by the team, we will immediately carry out for one day. We hope this activity can run smoothly and as expected. Two great speakers will be present to deliver the materials. These speakers are Ms. Rachel Smith, RM, and Miss Hans from Barnard Institute, Australia, who will deliver very good material, Midwife in Global Perspective in Facing the Era of Society 5.0. Hello, Mrs. Rachel.
Hello.
Okay. Okay. Is it currently at your place in the morning or afternoon?
4 p.m. nearly.
Okay. It's great that you could join this event. Thank you for your willingness to fulfill our request. You are very pretty, ma'am. Okay. And also the second speaker, Ibu Niwayan Dwi Rosmalawati, Upper Pens MPD, also will present a very interesting topic, the role of midwife in promotive and preventive efforts in the field of maternal and child health in the era of Society 5.0. Ibu Wayan, selamat pagi. Ibu Wayan sudah hadir? Okay, good morning, Mrs. Wayan. Is happy? Are you ready to deliver the material? Ibu Wayan, sudah siapkah dengan materi yang akan disampaikan kepada para audiens mahasiswa kita? Semoga Ibu Wayan sudah siap ya. Oke, sudah ya. Baik Ibu Wayan. This activity was held by the Midwifery Department of the Malang Polytechnic of Health, which is expected to broaden studies insight to become competent midwives in the future. Hopefully, with this activity and the materials that has been presented will be well by the speaker later, will make provision for our students to be able to compete, become a midwife who can compete on a global perspective in facing the era of society 5.0. Become a midwife who can play a role in the promotive and also preventive effort in the field of maternal and child health, the era of society 5.0. Happy activity participant. Thank you for being willing to take part in the event. Happy listening and hopefully useful. Finally, I would like to thank all the organizers who have supported this event by saying Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I hope this activity can be useful. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good morning. Saya kembalikan ke Mbak Wanda. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Bun.
Special speakers, and the session will be conducted by special moderator, Mrs. Eka Wulandari, SPD, MPD.
The role of midwives in promoting
Eka.
preventive effort in the field of maternal and child health in
Thank you. It is time for me now.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Terima kasih, Mbak Wanda. Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mrs. Rachel. Yeah. So it is time for me to guide you during the presentation and also the discussion. I hope all is well with you there. I believe it's spring in Australia, right? No? Is it spring already?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
spring, and I am based in New Zealand. So,
Sorry,
but I
sorry.
work.
Oh, I see.
No, my work
Okay.
is in Australia.
Oh,
So
I
you were
see.
half
Okay.
right.
But because I can see some flowers there. Yeah.
Fake
Oh,
flowers.
fake flowers. Okay. Okay. So you are going to have about 45 minutes to present the material, and then it will be followed by with QA discussion for about 15 minutes. Yeah. But before we start, maybe I would like to read a little about your curriculum vitae. I think we already know that Mrs. Rachel Smith is a registered midwife and also registered nurse and a master in midwifery, and also she had some certificates for adult education and training, higher education, IV training and assessment, and adult literacy and numeracy teaching. So I think it's very complete. Yeah. And then her current position is now as a senior midwifery specialist in international development, Burnett Institute, from 2019 until now. That is focusing on strengthening midwifery education in the Asia and Pacific regions. And also she is a midwife education consultant in Burnett Institute, and she also as a lecturer education from 2005 until now. Wow, so very long time already. And she also has some other professional activities as a peer reviewer for midwifery and women and birth. It is an international peer-reviewed journal, and then panel member of University of Technology. And she also actively writing a web-based writing about raising children. One of the example is about raising children. And then design and delivery of midwifery education workshop, whether it is face-to-face and also it is online. And the member of professional organization related to midwifery things and also reproductive health and others. And she has many publications. Yeah, the latest is about policy brief, quality midwifery education needs to address minimum global standard in Asia Pacific.UNFPA organization. Yeah. So I think it is no doubt that she has so many things related to midwifery education, and she is really concerned about midwifery education. And we are very lucky to have you here, ma'am, because you are going to tell us about how to handle the midwifery education, especially in this 5.0 society era. Okay, without further ado, maybe now I can give you the time to present the materials. The stage is yours. Okay, you may proceed, ma'am.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. And thank you for
Waalaikumsalam
your
warahmatullahi.
and thank you for your welcome and your invitation to speak today. I want to also thank the MC, the mistress of ceremonies, Wanda, Anasari Mustafa, and Niwayan Dwi and Ika Walandari for their time and for their participation. I would also like to thank any honourable guests present and the UNFPA representation, the faculty, the students and other participants here today. And I see we have around 250 online. So that's wonderful. A very interesting program ahead. And I hope that, that my presentation will be of benefit to some of you. I must confess, I was not too sure what the topic was about, the era of Society 5.0 and globalisation. So I have taken my own interpretation of it. And I hope for the next 40 minutes, we can present and discuss interesting advancements in midwifery around globalisation and around the increasing use of technology in both midwifery practice and midwifery education. I'm just going to share my screen. I hope you can all see my screen. And so my my interpretation of midwives in the era of Society 5.0 and globalisation is around the question about, will technology replace midwives? Okay, so we will work through the presentation. I'm very happy to take questions, either questions in the chat that I will answer after or during our question and answer session facilitated by Eka Walandari after the presentation. Okay, I have turned the captions on in case people find that useful. Okay, so first I'm going to talk a little bit about globalisation and the impact on midwifery and on maternal health. So globalisation, in the definition of globalisation from the Nightingale Declaration around nursing and midwifery, they define globalisation as a patriarchal model of economic development that is largely politically driven, that ignores the economic situation of women and their contribution to health. It often alienates them from the development process. Women are both providers and beneficiaries of healthcare, yet their education preparation and financial support under globalisation is largely neglected. So globalisation focuses on economic development. It focuses on political power. It benefits wealth over humanity, and there is considerable gender imbalance in globalisation, and particularly in globalisation in healthcare, or the impact of globalisation in healthcare. So that is the focus of globalisation. But I want to look at the focus of midwifery. So as we know, you are faculty, you are students, you are friends of midwifery, and our focus for midwifery is on women, on families, and on communities. Our midwifery focus is on respectful care, and it is on the combination of art and of science. And our focus is safe and high quality care for everyone, not just for the wealthy. So the impact of globalisation on health, there are some benefits and there are some challenges. Where wealth is distributed equally, globalisation is beneficial in improved access to health and health technologies, higher quality or availability of higher quality medicines and health technology or machines to support good health, and improved health infrastructure. But as I said, these benefits rely on wealth being distributed equally and are often only realised in high income countries and high income settings. And so those in low and middle income settings often face increasing challenges in regards to globalisation and health. The challenges include increased spread of disease, and we have all just lived through that, the impact of globalisation and COVID-19 on a global challenge in terms of increased mobility and increased travel opportunity that comes with globalisation has also increased the spread of disease. The challenges in low and middle income countries are that globalisation often focuses on wealth as opposed to humanity. There are also challenges around workforce migration. So low and middle income countries lose their qualified workforce to higher income countries, and they can't compete with the remuneration or the pay and the conditions. And so low and middle income countries train their health professionals, but then they lose them to other countries who are able to offer better conditions. And whilst this is beneficial for the individual practitioner, it is not beneficial for society as a whole, because we know we have, in this era, we have a significant workforce issue in that we do not have enough midwives or enough nurses to provide high quality health care. We also know that the impact of globalisation, particularly in relation to health, is often accompanied by an increase in non-communicable diseases, particularly in low and middle income countries. These are diseases such as obesity, coronary heart disease or cardiovascular disease, and diabetes, and the associated impact of these diseases on poorly invested health systems and health structures. So where wealth is distributed equally, globalisation has benefits for health, but where wealth is not distributed equally, either country by country or even within countries, when we look at urban and rural populations, we know there are challenges that are increased by globalisation. So one answer or one solution to those challenges or those impacts of globalisation is investing in women and in midwives. We know the focus of globalisation has an issue with gender imbalance. We know that midwives and nurses are predominantly women, and we know that women make up just over half of the world's population. So a very cost-effective solution to health and well-being is investment in women and midwives. A quote from Melinda Gates, from the Gates Foundation, is, when we invest in women and girls, we are investing in the people who invest in everyone else. So we double our investment. If we look at the evidence around investing in girls and in women, we know there is improved health benefits. So if we meet the need for modern contraception and provide all pregnant women and newborns with quality care, we can reduce maternal death and newborn death. When we invest in women and girls, families benefit. Evidence shows that girls and women reinvest more of their earned income in their families than men do. When we invest in women and girls, we increase productivity. So for every additional year of schooling a girl has, it increases her future earnings by 10 to 20%. And we know that she is going to invest those earnings in her families and in her benefit for society. We know when we invest in women and girls, we reduce poverty and we reduce hunger. Increasing access to resources and closing the gender gap in agriculture could lift 100 to 150 people out of hunger. We also know investment in girls and women creates sustainable nations. There is growing evidence that shows that corporations who are led by women are more focused on sustainability. We also know that fully closing the gender gap in a workplace would add up to 28 trillion in annual gross domestic product by 2025. So investing in girls and women strengthens economies. So this is the evidence to support investment in girls and women, and of course, investment in midwives and in nurses. So when we invest in women, when we provide women with the opportunity to better their health, education, and well-being, we know that the impact is far beyond the individual. A woman multiplies the impact of an investment made in her future by extending the benefits to the world around her and creating a better life for her family and building a strong community. And part of that investment in women will reduce or help prevent maternal death. So if we invest in women and in midwives so that all women have a skilled birth attendant and emergency care, we will help to prevent maternal deaths. And unfortunately, we know that 99% of maternal deaths occur in low and middle income countries. So there is disparity in part due to globalisation and the impact of globalisation when wealth is not distributed evenly. We know that when 10% more girls go to school, a country's gross domestic product increases by on average 3%. We also know that 1 in 5 girls who enroll in primary school in low and middle income countries do not complete their schooling. We know that girls who stay in school for 7 years or more will marry 4 years later and have 2 fewer children. And so we know also that 1 in 7 girls will marry before they are aged 15. And so by preventing early or child marriage, we can increase gross domestic product and increase the health and well-being of girls, of women, of families, and of society. We also know that there is disparity in healthcare in relation to gender. We know that 52% of people living with HIV are women. And we also know that current approaches to preventing mother-to-child HIV transmission are 98% effective, but we also know that those treatments are not always available for women in low and middle income countries. We know that 43% of women make up the agricultural labour workforce. However, women are less likely to own land, and if they do own land, they own smaller amounts of land. But we know when women have the same amount of land as men, there is a 10% increase in crop fields or crop yields. And so we know investing in women is an investment in society, and it is an investment in the country's gross domestic product, and therefore the wealth and development of countries. We know that there is gender inequality, and then we know that this is an issue in regards to globalisation, or the impact of globalisation in low and middle incomes. The challenges or the negative impact are more likely to affect women than men. And we know that Sustainable Development Goal 5 is around ending all forms of discrimination and eliminating all forms of violence and harmful practices against women and girls everywhere. So we want to invest in women, improve women's lives, and decrease gender inequality or promote gender equality as a way of increasing the wealth of society and improving outcomes for women, for girls, for families, and for communities. Sustainable Development Goal 3 is around good health and well-being. And unfortunately, we know that every day around 800 or more than 800 women die from preventable causes related to pregnancy and childbirth around the world. And we know that the challenges, the gender inequitable challenges around globalisation worsen this impact for women. But to reach good health and well-being, we need to reach Goal 5, gender equity. We need women to have equal access to health, to education. We need to have them ensure they have freedom from violence and legal rights, and also public life involvement. We need women in positions of power. We need sustained investments in women, in girls, and also investments in midwives. Because we know that midwifery makes a difference to women, to newborn, to families, to communities, to societies, to countries, and globally. The International Day of the Midwife in 2025, the theme for the International Day of the Midwife celebrations was around following the data and investing in midwives. We know from the evidence that there is a new research that looked at the impact of midwives and scaling up coverage of midwifery care. And that study estimated that if every woman had universal access to a midwife, then who was educated and regulated to deliver midwifery delivered interventions, then we could save 4.3 million lives by the year 2035. So investment in midwives is a cost-effective solution to improving maternal and newborn survival. This is the same study by Nove and colleagues. Midwives who are educated and regulated to global standards play a vital role in reducing mortality. So as I said, if we achieved universal coverage of midwife-delivered interventions by 2035, we could save 4.3 million lives. Even if we had a modest 10% increase in coverage of midwife-delivered interventions every 5 years, we could still save more than 1 million lives by the year 2035. But we need investment in midwives. We need a global approach to standards so that midwives, regardless of where they undertake their education, are educated and regulated to global standards. In that way, one of the impacts of globalisation, such as global standards, will have a positive benefit for midwives and also for women, babies, and for families. An earlier study that was done by Renfrew and colleagues in the Lancet series on midwifery in 2014 identified that where midwives were educated and regulated to global standards, more than 50 outcomes were improved by the provision of quality midwifery education and quality care. Some of the outcomes included a reduction in mortality and morbidity, a reduction in stillbirth and miscarriage, reduced harm to women and to babies, improved emotional, social and emotional outcomes, reduced harmful interventions when they were unnecessary. This in turn improved public health, such as breastfeeding initiation and duration, birth spacing, contraceptive use, and immunisation uptake. And this therefore improved health service outcomes. There were less complications, there were reduced lengths of stay, and there were less numbers of babies requiring intensive newborn care, therefore saving health systems millions of dollars. So we know that the evidence or the data is very clear around the impact of midwives, but we need to remember that these midwives need to be educated and regulated against global standards. In particular, midwives who are educated and regulated to global standards, where their provision of care includes family planning or birth spacing, the investments are an increased reduction in maternal and newborn mortality. We know that reproductive choice and control reduces maternal mortality, reduces neonatal mortality, improves health outcomes for women, reduces health spending, increases access to education, and reduces poverty. So we need to invest in women, we need to invest in midwives, and we need to invest in reproductive choice and control through investing in family planning and reproductive health. And we need a cadre of professionals, that is midwives, who are prepared to deliver interventions, midwifery delivered interventions to improve outcomes. The State of the World's Midwifery Report in 2021 identified that midwives can provide around 90% of sexual, reproductive, maternal, newborn, and adolescent health care that is needed, yet they account for less than 10% of the global workforce. The State of the World's Midwifery Report called for urgent investment in workforce, in education, in service delivery, and in leadership. Investing in these areas will address or will enable midwives to work to preventable maternal and newborn deaths. And so when we look at globalisation, maybe a benefit of globalisation, or taking a global approach to midwifery, particularly education and practice and regulation, will improve outcomes for women and for families, and will strengthen the profession of midwifery. The International Confederation of Midwives in 2019 reissued their ICM essential competencies for midwifery practice. There are 4 competency domains or areas, and there are a number of elements under each domain. Every midwife, upon graduation, should have demonstrated that they meet these essential competencies for midwifery practice. These global competencies allow us or provide us with standards for the provision of midwifery care. They provide us guidance for practice, they provide us guidance for education, and they provide us guidance for regulation. This global approach to competencies and standards means that regardless of where a midwife is produced, whether that be New Zealand, Cambodia, India, United Kingdom, Indonesia, that midwife must meet these essential competencies for midwifery practice. If they don't, then the benefits of midwifery care will be reduced and the outcomes will be poorer for women. The ICM also produce global standards for midwifery education. They have 6 standards that education providers, polytechnics, universities, schools of midwifery, and providers who deliver pre-service midwifery education should develop courses that meet these standards. There are a number of further explanations under each of the standards, but essentially the midwifery faculty involved in the education or pre-service education should be midwives. They should be supported in development, and they should be able to maintain both educational expertise and clinical expertise. Students should have equitable entry into programs and be supported by the institutions to complete their programs. The curriculum should be focused around the global competencies or the essential competencies. The curriculum should be a competency-based assessment, and there should be appropriate resources, facilities, and services to enable the delivery of these courses. So these are the global standards for midwifery education. There are also global standards for midwifery educators. So competency in midwifery education. There are 8 standards around ethical, legal principles of midwifery, a standard around midwifery practice, a standard around theoretical learning, a standard around learning in the clinical area, standards around assessment and evaluation of students and of programs, standard around organisation, management and leadership, communication, leadership and advocacy, and research. For those who are interested, these are the WHO competencies for midwifery, or global standards for midwifery educators, if you want to look more closely into these. And there are also global competencies, or a global competency framework for universal healthcare, for the delivery of universal healthcare. And this includes the cadre of midwifery. So we want our graduates to be people-centered. We want them to have decision-making skills. We want them to be excellent communicators. We want them to be collaborative with other health professionals. We want them to use evidence to inform practice, and we want them to be professional and personal in their conduct. And so there are global standards that support the provision of midwifery education and the provision of midwifery care. And when we educate midwives to global standards, and when we provide quality care that meets global standards, we improve outcomes for women. So investing in midwives is vital, as is investing in women and in babies. And this short video reminds us how midwives make a difference to women and to babies.
I listened to your heartbeat.
I noticed your wife's baby tears.
Tomé la mano de tu madre.
I taught your sister about menstruation.
I helped you breastfeed for the first time.
I intervened when the birth became an emergency.
I started your breath.
私は命を守っています。
Mimi sio muuguzi.
I am not a doctor.
I am a midwife.
I'm a midwife.
私は助産師です。
I am a midwife.
Mimi ni mkunga mtaalam. I am a midwife.
It's the best job in the world.
Just a reminder that it is the best job in the world. An investment in midwives is an investment in women and children, and that will negate the negative impact of globalisation. So the second part of my presentation is around the increasing impact of technology, and will technology replace midwifery? Can technology replace midwifery? So we know, just make sure we're on mute. Okay, so we know there is an increase in technology in society and also in midwifery. We know this is evident in midwifery education and midwifery practice, and evident in the women and the families that we provide care for. This is just a reminder of the advent of technology, or the progress of technology. Many of you will be too young to remember the phone in the bottom corner, and even the next two phones. But some of us older midwives and older, more mature, maybe we will say, participants will remember that before the advent of mobile technology, we only had land-based telephones. And when mobile technology first came out, maybe in the late 80s, early 90s, the mobile phones were very large, and they came with their own, almost their own suitcase or bag to carry them. And then they progressively got smaller and more portable. And then we've moved on to smartphones. So some of us present will remember all of this technology, and the younger of those of us present may not remember the others. And there is a division in terms of generation, in terms of technology. So we refer to the older or more mature generation as a digital immigrant. That means we were born before the advent of technology, particularly the advent of computer technology, or the digital natives, the millennials, the millennial generation, who were born with technology. They are digital natives. They grew up knowing nothing else. They grew up with technology and increasing use of technology and increasing availability of technology, both in high resource settings and in lower and middle income country settings. So in terms of seeking information or processing information, the digital natives, or those who are born with technology, they receive information quickly from multiple sources. They have the ability to multitask and to process parallel. They rely on pictures, sounds, and videos before text, before words. They have an ability to generate content, and they rely on user-generated content such as YouTube or TikTok or other forms of generated content. And they see learning and information seeking as a fun process. Whereas a digital immigrant, those of us who are older and who have come slowly to this increase in technology, we generally like a controlled release of information from limited sources. We prefer our information from words or text. We need private and personal space to learn and process. We like our information presented logically and linear. And we generally have a single focus on tasks. So these are just some of the general differences between the millennial generation and those of us who were born before technology increased or took off.
Excuse me, ma'am, you have about
Yes.
10 minutes more?
1 minute, right.
10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Oh, 10 minutes. Excellent. That's better news.
Okay, good.
Okay, I'll try to allow some time for questions. Okay, so when we look at the increasing use of technology in society, when we look at the digital generation or the millennial mother, these are the women we are now looking after. 90% of new mothers are millennials, were born with technology. They are consistently connected. They generally have information at their fingertips, and they use multiple social networks. And when I say social, that means online, so technology networks, not necessarily community-based social networks. This is just some recent research that is available around the increasing use of technology in midwifery practice, and for women and mothers. So you can see there is research around the use of mobile applications for pregnancy and parenting, around mobile applications for self-management during pregnancy, around effectiveness of mobile applications in improving women's adherence to prenatal consultations, evidence around exploring women's use of mobile applications during labour, and this one from Indonesia around health communication through online media, the use of pregnancy applications as alternative to health resources for the millennial mother in Indonesia. So, and this is a very small sample of the evidence now being generated around this technology. I think I'll just skip through that. So when we look at technology and we look at the impact of technology on mothering, so the women that we are looking after, we know that they have instant information or instant access to information, many of them, not all of them, but there is also information overload. There is too much information and an inability to filter the information as to whether the information is useful or harmful, and this is a big problem. There are lots of applications available for pregnancy and lots of online social networks or groups also available for pregnancy, but these are social, not professional, and so the information that women are receiving through technology is not always the right information, and it's not always safe. Sometimes this access to social networks or online networks leads to isolation for women. Although they are connected on the phone, they are socially isolated within their communities. And there is a loss of community connection with everyone multitasking and being on their devices. There is a reduction in communication and a reduction in connection. We know from the evidence that babies need humans, not screens. We know that babies learn through imitation, through expression, through language or being talked to. We know that babies utilize lip reading from a very early age to make sense of language, that babies respond to eye contact. And we know that, the overuse of technology, mobile technology around babies will increase their exposure to radiation. And I don't know how many times in my practice I have seen visitors come in to see the baby and they only see the baby initially through a screen. Everyone is so busy taking photos of the baby that nobody is actually looking at the baby and nobody is communicating with the baby. They are staring at the screen. And I wonder what long-term impact this has on babies. When you look at the long-term impact of screens in early life, and now with COVID-19 also masks, we're going to have a generation who may have challenges in terms of expression, in terms of language development, and in terms of social contact. And I look forward to the research that will come out to hopefully to identify issues so that we can then change our practice to address these issues. And so this is an application. You will probably all be familiar with it. I hope it's in Indonesian. I just Googled it and this is what came up, but I'm pretty sure it is. So it's about, replacing midwives with applications or replacing midwives with technology. Midwifery, if a woman has a question, we have an app for that. We have an app, and some apps are excellent. They're developed in an evidence-based manner. They're supported through, government or through non-government organisations. They have correct information. They advise women to seek healthcare when required. But some applications are unlicensed, unregulated, and have the wrong information that is dangerous for women and babies. So we really need to look at what's available, look at what the women we are looking after are using, and talk to women about applications and about technology and the use of technology as opposed to the use of a professional expert. We can do both. Women love applications. We have an application for our period or menstrual tracking. We have applications for contractions. We have applications for breastfeeding. We have applications for pregnancy care. We have applications for baby care. But we need to balance that with face-to-face care from a midwife. There is a website where you can put in your profession to calculate the risk of automation of your profession. So will midwives be automated or will we be replaced by robots? And when we put it into this particular website, will a robot take my job? Fortunately, they calculate that midwives have a very low automation risk. So our profession is totally safe against technology because it has a heavy reliance on assisting and caring for others, a heavy reliance on social perceptiveness, a reliance on awkward positions and cramped workspaces, a reliance on finger or manual dexterity, and a reliance on originality. So I was very happy when I put midwives into this calculation to see that we are going to be around, we are going to be with women. When you look at this image, how can you replace that connection with a machine? You cannot replace midwives with machines or midwives with technology. We can work with technology, but we will not be replaced from technology. We know this from over time. the birth of the Prophet Muhammad through to the present day, midwives are always present and they are here to stay, thankfully. And that brings me to question time, I think, or comment time.
Okay. Okay, very interesting presentation. I like the last slide of you. Midwives are always here to stay. That's a very spiritful comment from you. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, I think we already have some questions on the chat box. The first one from Ibu Ika Yudianti. She said that Indonesia produces huge number of midwives every year, but unfortunately it doesn't follow with the significant decrease of maternal mortality. So how do you see this phenomenon?
Thank you, Ibu Ika, for that very insightful question. It is a problem that we face in many countries. I remember doing some work around accreditation in midwifery education. And when we worked with the team in Indonesia, they said that they produce over 50,000 midwives per year. Unfortunately, it's not about numbers, it's about quality. It's about initially when we are looking at trying to reduce maternal mortality, there is a focus on numbers. So what has happened in the past is that we've recognized we need midwives, and then we've hurriedly tried to produce a lot of midwives, but they are sometimes of a lower quality. They don't meet the standards, the global standards for midwifery competencies, and that is the issue. So we need to work with regulation and with institutions to ensure that midwifery curricula aligns with global standards so that we produce high quality midwives who meet global standards. And that will, of course, take some time. There are challenges in the provision of midwifery education, sometimes through private institutions who are not regulated. And I know in Indonesia, they have set up the 5 centres of excellence for midwifery education, and that is a big step forward in addressing the issue around quantity or number versus quality. So in time, as we get graduates from these schools that focus on global standards, we will improve the quality of care provision and decrease maternal and infant mortality. But thank you, Ibu Ika. That was a thoughtful question.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So quality should be improved, yeah. And then the second question from Ibu Rita Yulifa. What is the global standard for education description of the curriculum?
Thank you.
Global standard. Yeah, maybe in general, ma'am.
Yulifa. The global standard for a curriculum, for a midwifery curriculum, is that it is competency-based. So it must be based on the ICM competencies. It must be at least a 3-year program for a direct entry program, or an 18-month program if we are doing a midwifery education post-nursing program. But I know in Indonesia that there is a 3- and a 4-year program, and so that meets the global standards around midwifery education. So yeah, competency-based, appropriate length of the program, and appropriate qualification. I think they're the broad standards. The standards provide a lot more detail around curriculum, and in fact, at the moment, they're just about UNFPA, ICM, and WHO are about to launch a global sample curriculum for a midwifery program. So that will be something to watch. It's based on the competencies, obviously, and will provide countries and institutions with a guiding template for what they need to include in their midwifery education. So if we are expecting midwives to take a broader approach to sexual reproductive health care, we need to include that in training. If we expect midwives to deliver family planning services, we need to include that in their training, plus all of the other, competencies for midwifery standards. That was a very broad question, but hopefully I've addressed some of that.
Yes, I agree with you. It's already in general terms, yeah. Okay, thank you. We have one person raising hand, ma'am. Miss Inas Tiara. Okay, you want to ask to Miss Rachel directly, ma'am? Miss Inas?
Okay, thank you. I want to ask about in Indonesia, there's an interest about telemedicine because we okay. As far as I know, in Australia, there's a push from the regulation for midwifery student to focus on continuity of care. And then in Indonesia, there is a huge interest using technology in telemedicine. Yeah, so we use technology for yes. So how can we still sustaining continuity of care with in update or still updated in using technology, but in health treatment without lower the case lower the quality of care? Thank you.
Thank you, Ines Tiara. That's an excellent question as well, and a issue that we all are trying to overcome or trying to address. We know from COVID-19, the pandemic has pushed us very quickly towards telehealth, and telehealth can be useful in opening access to midwifery care, especially for women who live in rural or remote areas. So we know that there are some benefits from telehealth, but from the emerging evidence through the quick introduction of telehealth during COVID, is that we also know that women or mothers like some face-to-face care. So we need to balance the quality of care. We need to balance what women want. We need to balance the economies of scale and the provision of telehealth. But we also need to be careful that we're not just trying to replace midwifery care with a telephone, because there are challenges. So it might be that we identify that for some women, a number of visits are undertaken through telehealth and a number face-to-face. So merging both the new technology and the traditional face-to-face provision of antenatal and postnatal care. So it will be a challenge that we will need to address over the next 5 years or so, as we get evidence from women's experience of telehealth provision and midwives' experience. And we have a research article under consideration in the Journal of Global Health around the provision of telehealth services for midwifery care in Laos and Bangladesh during COVID-19. And from some of the information from that, the data from that study said that women liked that they could access telehealth. They didn't have to go to the hospital, but they missed the face-to-face, and they, on the whole, preferred face-to-face care. So we need to listen to the women as well as, trying to manage the push because they think that telehealth will save money in the health service. So we really need to be strong as midwives and advocate for the woman and know that nothing can replace a face-to-face midwife and a midwife's touch and a midwife's care. That's my feeling. Great question.
Okay, I agree. Couldn't agree more, yeah, ma'am.
Good.
Cannot replace human touch, of course. Yeah.
That's
Okay,
right.
we still have two more questions, I think. These are from the students. The first is from Wita Apriliana. She asked about, can the concept of society 5.0 be a solution to the society's problem? Maybe the problems with women or midwifery in Indonesia or around the world, maybe, ma'am.
Thanks, Wita Apriliana. That's a great question as well, and I don't know the answer to that. I think it's something that we will need to do some research on. We will need to look at the aspects of the concept of Society 5.0 and look at the experiences of women. I think there are probably some very beneficial aspects of technology, but we can't forget the beneficial aspects of midwifery as a profession, of being with women, so not with machines, with women. And so, but we shouldn't deny technology just because, so we should filter out what's going to be useful, what's going to improve outcomes for women, and what do we need to remain the same, or what do we need to push to stay the same so that we can ensure that we have the best outcomes for women. That was a hard question from a student.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, time will tell, yeah, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, and then I think this will be the last question because we run out of time. Yeah. This is from millennial generation, ma'am. I think digital generation. Babies need human. This is from Yasmin. She asked about babies need humans, not screens, according to your slide. But in reality, nowadays, many parents give gadgets to their children who are still babies. So what do you think? Yeah. That's the reality.
We call it the mechanical babysitter. So from the television to the iPad to the screen phone, the smartphone. It is a big challenge because the design of the games and the television programs are all designed to turn on the part of the brain that responds to essentially pleasure, and the whole focus of the development of technology is around creating an addiction for technology. So the quote that I used, the babies need faces, not screens, or similar, is from the World Health Organization. And they have some evidence, so they have a discussion paper around screen time, for not so much for babies, but for toddlers. And they recommend that under 2 years old babies or toddlers should not have screen time. We know in reality that is not always the case. And we also know the quickest way to quieten down a small child is to give them a screen, and that will shut them up for quite a long period of time, which is not great. But I think, again, we look at, the balance, some screen time, some face-to-face communication, contact time, some playing out, some play time, some learning time. It's all about balance, but it's very, I know it's just very tempting to pass the screen over. And I know I've done it myself, so, but we need to talk to women about the evidence And we need to advise them that, you know, we know it's difficult, screen time, but maybe try these other strategies, distraction or whatever first. Don't go to the screen first, try a few other things. Yeah, so it's just about making women aware that it's probably not great for developing brains to have a lot of screen time. Yeah, it's just, but I recommend you maybe read the WHO advice around, it was either WHO or UNICEF around screen time and young children.
Okay, balancing, yeah, maybe that's the key word here. Yes. Okay, thank you, ma'am. Seems that there are still some questions, but we don't have enough time. So maybe if they want to contact you by email, will it be possible, ma'am? Is it okay?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure,
Okay,
absolutely.
okay. Thank you very
And
much.
I'm happy to share the presentation as a PDF. I can send it to Geeta, who may be able to distribute it.
Yeah, okay. We will learn more about that later. Okay, thank you very much. That's a very insightful presentation that we have today. Allow me to have a little bit conclusion from what you have told us today, ma'am. So we can see that midwives, yeah, cannot be replaced. Yeah, you already say that midwives over time always present and here to stay. That's the keyword for midwives. We as a midwife should adapt with the use of high technology, of course, in order to reach our purpose to save lives of women and also children. And then strengthening midwifery is an investment to prevent loss of life of many women. And having global standard for education is a must also. And of course, technology, once again, will not replace midwives because babies and moms need human touch in all their aspects of life. Maybe that's what I can conclude from the presentation. I hope what we have discussed today will make us more aware, yeah, about the role of midwives and also the role of technology, balancing, yeah, as you said before, balancing between the technology and the human touch in our everyday life. Thank you, ma'am. It's
Thank
great
you,
to
and
see
thank
you
you.
today.
Wonderful questions.
Bu
Yes.
Eka, Bu Eka,
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
maybe Miss Rachel have some motivational words for our
Okay.
midwife students here to build their
Okay,
militancy
ma'am.
in midwifery. Please, Miss Rachel.
I think over midwives is already apa tadi? Over time, always present here and there. Yes, ma'am. Do you have any?
One other thing that I say to my students is that a woman will always remember her midwife. Always. She will remember what she said. She will remember how she made her feel. So as a midwife, you are in the most absolute privileged position. You are not invited to that birth, but you are there. And so you must always be present for the woman. And you must always remember that she will remember you and she will pray for you for the rest of her life. Because that's how you make her feel. So make her feel good and make her feel like praying for you for the rest of her life. And that is your reward for being a midwife.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you, Miss Rachel.
Wonderful. Okay, that's a really touching motivational words from Miss Rachel. Okay, so thank you.
I will leave you now to enjoy the rest of your conference so that you can undertake it in Indonesian and not.
Thank you. Looking forward to another webinar like blended learning and how to teach midwifery evidence-based. Miss Rachel.
Good. Thank you.
We're waiting for
I
that.
know. Oh,
that's
good.
Wonderful. Yeah.
See you on
Looking forward for you to come to Indonesia, ma'am.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yes.
Enjoy your day.
Okay, thank you. So I think that's a very wonderful presentation from Miss Rachel, and we have already concluded the presentation. So now it's time for me to take it back to the MC. Okay, Wanda. Bye-bye, Miss Rachel.
Bye.
Sama-sama.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
For Mrs. Eka, time and screens are welcome.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me, I cannot hear your voice actually. Just before. So it is time for Ibu Wayan, Miss Wanda.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay. Okay, thank you. So it's my time again to lead the discussion, but this time we are going to have the lovely Mrs. Wayan, yeah, from Poltekkes Kemenkes Malang, who will present her material today about the preventive and promotive efforts of midwifery in this society 5.0 era, especially focusing on maternal and child health. Okay, good morning, Ibu Wayan. Are you here already?
Yes, good morning, ma'am.
Okay, so we are going to have the discussion in English fully or
Indonesia.
Indonesia. Okay, but you say it's going to be mixed, ya. Okay, sebelum kita mulai, mungkin bisa di-sharekan dulu CV-nya Ibu Wayan. Ya, Ibu Wayan ini nama lengkapnya adalah Niwayan Dwi Rosmalawati, Upper Kemenkes, and her address, her initial besar Ijen, and you can see the number, her phone number, and also the last education is she is focusing on IKM, ya, KIA Pro from Universitas Gajah Mada. And then she already have so many work experience, and I think the latest one is as a docent data cert in Poltekkes Kemenkes Sorong. Dan tentu saja beliau adalah dosen kita yang tercinta ya, yang ada di Poltekkes Kemenkes Malang. Sudah ada beberapa publikasi, banyak sekali publikasinya yang sudah dilakukan, dan yang terakhir adalah di tahun 2019 ya, yang juga berfokus pada kebidanan. Oke, Ibu Wayan akan punya waktu sekitar 45 menit untuk melakukan presentasi, dan nanti seperti tadi juga akan diikuti dengan question and answer session. Oke, ma'am, time is yours.
Yes, thank you, Ma'am Eka. Baik, ya, Ma'am Eka dan audiens sekalian, saya akan menyampaikan tentang peran bidan dalam upaya promotif preventif di bidang kesehatan ibu dan anak di era Society 5.0. Nggak bisa dibesarkan, panitia? Oh, anunya yang lag. Oke, next. Tadi sudah nggak bisa jalan ya? Baik, ya, kita fokus pada era Society 5.0, ya. Sekarang ini tadi Mem Rachel juga sudah menyampaikan bahwa kita sekarang berada di era Society 5.0. Kita telah memasuki sebuah peradaban ya yang berkonsepkan kemajuan intelektual yang disebut dengan industri revolusi 4.0 ya yang sudah lewat. Namun di era itu para audiens sekalian, banyak sekali atau beberapa tantangan yang perlu kita hadapi sebagai seorang bidan, mulai dari tantangan ekonomi, tantangan sosial, kemudian tantangan teknis, tantangan lingkungan, dan tantangan politik, aturan, serta kebijakan. Nah, tantangan-tantangan itu yang harus kita hadapi menuju di era Society 5.0 ini, setelah melewati fase revolusi industri 4.0. Next. Nah, para audiens sekalian, sebagai antisipasi dari gejolak disrupsi revolusi 4.0, ya, karena kemarin itu semuanya serba IT di revolusi industri 4.0 yang seolah-olah akan mengecilkan peran manusia dan akhirnya kita khawatirkan akan menggerus jati diri kemanusiaan. Nah, hadirlah atau muncullah konsep baru yang disebut dengan konsep Smart Society 5.0. Ini yang akan kita lakukan ke depan para audiens sekalian. Selanjutnya, next. Nah, era Society 5.0 yang disebut dengan Super Smart Society, ya, Super Smart Society, di mana menempatkan manusia sebagai komponen utama. Jadi Super Smart Society kalau di era industri 4.0 kemarin, semuanya berbasis teknologi, ya. Semuanya berbasis teknologi, bahkan seolah-olah mengecilkan fungsi manusia. Nah, sekarang di era Super Smart Society ini ternyata tetap manusia adalah komponen utamanya. Tadi Miss Rachel juga sudah mengatakan bahwa baby tidak membutuhkan screen, ya, baby membutuhkan kita. Jangan hanya dikasih screen gitu aja, ya. Sampai anak kecil, kita tahu sekarang tadi pertanyaannya mahasiswa juga, sampai tidak bisa berbicara di usia 5 tahun karena sejak kecil sudah dikenalkan screen. Anaknya diam. Nah, ternyata itu perlu kita rombak. Kita harus tetap ketemu, kita harus tetap memberikan perhatian yang tadi kata Miss Rachel, balance antara mesin dan manusia, ya. Nah, di sini masyarakat dapat menyelesaikan berbagai tantangan di era 5.0, ya. Bisa menyelesaikan berbagai tantangan dan permasalahan sosial dengan memanfaatkan berbagai inovasi yang lahir di era revolusi industri 4.0. Ya, ini sejalan dengan pemerintah kita sudah mengeluarkan peraturan presiden nomor 95 tahun 2018, yaitu tentang pemerintahan berbasis elektronik. Walaupun begitu tetap kita manusia sebagai komponennya, itu yang penting rekan-rekan sekalian. Kemudian hal ini juga sejalan dengan visi Kemenkes, ya, ini untuk melakukan digitalisasi di sektor kesehatan sejak awal kehidupan, katanya dalam kandungan, hingga ya, atau sampai pelayanan kesehatan terpadu bagi pasien lansia. Jadi maksudnya di sini dua-duanya harus balance antara manusia dengan digital. Ini Permenkes nomor 21 tahun 2020. Ini yang melatar belakangi kita membahas hal ini. Kemudian next. Nah, bagaimana dengan bidan dalam memberikan asuhan atau kebidanan? Ya, dari Mem Rachel tadi sudah dijelaskan bahwa kita tetap butuh face to face. Kita tetap butuh ketemu gitu ya. Nah, sebelum kita melangkah ke bagaimana bidan dalam memberikan asuhan kebidanan, saya ingatkan kembali rekan-rekan bahwa bidan, next, bidan itu apa sih gitu ya? Bidan itu apa? Mungkin ada yang lupa. Ya, bidan itu tidak ada laki-laki. Ya, bidan sampai dengan hari ini adalah seorang perempuan, ya, seorang perempuan yang telah menyelesaikan program pendidikan kebidanan baik dalam negeri maupun di luar negeri yang diakui secara sah oleh pemerintah kita dan telah memenuhi syarat untuk melakukan praktek kebidanan. Ini katanya Kemenkes nomor 320 tahun 2020 ya. Sudah ada perubahan dari yang kemarin ya, ini bahwa kita baik dalam maupun luar negeri sudah menyelesaikan pendidikan itu disebut bidan. Kemudian untuk IBI mengatakan bahwa bidan itu juga seorang perempuan yang lulus pendidikan bidan yang diakui oleh pemerintah dan organisasi profesi di wilayah negara Republik Indonesia serta memiliki kompetensi dan kualifikasi untuk diregisterkan atau didaftarkan, kemudian sertifikasi dan secara sah mendapatkan lisensi untuk menjalankan praktek bidan. Artinya ya rekan-rekan semua ini sekarang para audiens sekalian bahwa kita nanti khususnya mahasiswa ini ya, nanti harus kalau katanya IBI ya, harus sudah terdaftar, mempunyai sertifikasi dan bisa secara sah mendapatkan lisensi untuk menjalankan praktek bidan. Ya, mungkin ada yang lupa, saya mengingatkan kembali, selain bidan, apa sih sehat? Next. Ya, sehat ya. Saya mencoba mengutip pengertian sehat dari Undang-Undang Kesehatan tentang Kesehatan dan kedua dari WHO. Ada satu perbedaan prinsip di sini rekan-rekan sekalian. Untuk kesehatan menurut Undang-Undang Kesehatan ini adalah keadaan sehat secara fisik, ya fisik, mental, spiritual maupun sosial yang memungkinkan setiap orang untuk hidup produktif secara sosial dan ekonomi. Sedangkan WHO merumuskan bahwa sehat itu adalah cakupannya lebih luas, yaitu keadaan yang sempurna fisik, mental maupun sosial, tidak hanya terbebas dari penyakit atau kelemahan. Tadi saya katakan apa sih bedanya? Kalau di negara kita itu menentukan tidak hanya fisik, mental dan sosial, tapi di sini ada spiritual. Nah, bagaimana bidan? Nah ini ya, ini kita sehatnya ada fisik, mental, sosial dan spiritual. Kalau di WHO kan hanya fisik, mental dan sosial, tapi sempurna. Kalau yang di Undang-Undang Kesehatan ini baik ya, hanya baik saja, baik secara fisik. Nah ini yang akan kita tuju bersama rekan-rekan sekalian. Bidan melakukan peran untuk menuju sehat baik menurut undang-undang maupun menurut WHO. Next. Nah ini apa sih perannya bidan di dalam promotif dan preventif? Kenapa disebut promotif preventif ya? Karena kita tidak memberikan pengobatan. Jadi bidan, saya awali dulu bahwa bidan itu adalah ujung tombak katanya ya, spearhead. Ujung tombak bagi optimalisasi 1000 hari pertama kelahiran. Ya, the first 1000 ya. 1000 day of birth of children. Ini harus kita pahami bersama rekan-rekan. Kemudian bidan ini adalah mitra perempuan. Jadi kita dalam melakukan pelayanan bahwa ingat perempuan itu adalah mitra kita, ya, mitra atau partner. Kemudian bidan juga selain mitra, bidan juga sahabat perempuan. Kemudian pemberi layanan, provider. Kemudian bidan juga memberikan asuhan secara promotif dan preventif. Inilah yang mendasari peran bidan preventif promotif, karena memang dikatakan bidan ini memberikan layanan preventif dan promotif. Ini ya. Next. Nah, saya mengingatkan kembali bahwa peran bidan dalam preventif promotif. Nah, peran bidan secara umum sudah kita ketahui bersama, kita mempunyai 4 peran besar, saudara. Ada 4 peran besar yang harus kita lakukan dan harus kita perbarui di era Society 5.0 ini. Yang pertama adalah peran pelaksana. Ya, peran pelaksana ini dalam melakukan peran pelaksana ada 3 kategori tugas yang harus kita kerjakan di peran pelaksana. Yang pertama adalah tugas mandiri, kemudian tugas kolaborasi, dan yang terakhir adalah tugas ketergantungan. Jadi di peran pelaksana ini tugas mandiri memang kita bidan yang harus mengerjakan. Kemudian kolaborasi kerjasama dengan profesi lain, ya dengan profesi lain. Sedangkan peran yang ketiga adalah tugas ketergantungan. Ketergantungan ini maksudnya kita tidak bisa mengerjakan sendiri, kita harus tergantung dengan profesi lain, dokter ya, di sini khususnya dokter obgyn ya. Kalau kolaborasi kita kerjasama. Nah, di era 5.0 ini kita harus kita memperbarui diri, kita tingkatkan diri bagaimana kita bisa memberikan pelayanan dengan 3 kategori tugas sebagai pelaksana pelayanan kebidanan. Kemudian peran yang kedua adalah sebagai pengelola. Sebagai pengelola ini bidan mempunyai 2 tugas dalam pengelola, 2 tugas utama, yaitu yang pertama adalah tugas pengembangan pelayanan dasar kesehatan, kemudian yang kedua adalah tugas partisipasi dalam tim. Nah, di sini yang perlu kita tingkatkan lagi, karena tadi ada kolaborasi di peran pelaksana ya, dalam pengelola juga harus ada kerja tim. Di era sekarang pikiran kompetisi sudah harus kita hilangkan. Mungkin sekarang yang harus kita tingkatkan adalah kolaborasi. Ya, kolaborasi. Karena kalau kita berpikir kompetitif, kita maju sendiri, teman-teman kita tinggalkan. Tapi di era sekarang kita harus berkolaborasi, pandai membangun link. Ya, membuat link, semakin banyak yang bisa kita ajak berkolaborasi, itu semakin bagus. Apalagi sebagai manajer ya. Selanjutnya peran yang ketiga adalah peran pendidik. Dalam peran pendidik di sini kita mempunyai 2 tugas, yaitu tugas pendidik dan penyuluh. Ya, pendidik ini maksudnya kita memberikan ilmu ya. Kalau penyuluh sama sih sebenarnya ya. Pendidik dan penyuluh ada mirip-mirip lah. Yang terakhir adalah peran sebagai peneliti. Peran sebagai peneliti ini bidan bertugas melakukan penelitian dan atau investigasi dalam bidang kesehatan baik secara mandiri maupun secara berkelompok. Nah, di sini ternyata rekan-rekan sekalian, kita juga harus bisa menjadi seorang peneliti. Tidak bisa sendiri, kita bisa berkelompok ya. Sendiri boleh, berkelompok juga boleh. Next. Nah, ini teman-teman sekalian peran dari bidan pada promotif preventif di era Society 5.0. Di era ini mempersyaratkan 3 kemampuan utama yang harus dimiliki oleh setiap individu. Ini bidan khususnya ya, karena kita berbicara peran bidan, jadi saya berbicaranya bidan. Jadi yang perlu itu ada tiga kemampuan utama yang harus kita miliki di era 5.0. Yang pertama kita harus bisa berpikir kreatif, ya. Kreatif, tidak hanya kreatif saja, kita juga harus bisa berpikir kritis atau critical thinking, dan kemudian komunikasi dan kolaborasi. Tadi juga sudah saya katakan bahwa kompetisi sudah pelan-pelan bisa kita hapus dari mindset kita, bahwa sekarang kita harus pandai berkolaborasi. Artinya apa? Kolaborasi kita harus punya banyak teman supaya bisa berkolaborasi dengan baik. Nah, ini pemerintah kita sekarang sudah juga mengatakan ada 6 pilar transformasi sistem kesehatan. Ini di era ini ya teman-teman sekalian, di era 5.0 ini tentunya dari 6 pilar itu, yang pertama ada transformasi layanan primer, kemudian transformasi layanan rujukan, transformasi sistem ketahanan kesehatan, transformasi sistem pembiayaan kesehatan, transformasi sumber daya manusia atau SDM kesehatan, dan yang terakhir transformasi teknologi kesehatan. Ini sejalan dengan spirit 5.0 rekan-rekan sekalian, bahwa kita harus mengikuti semua transformasi ini, ya. Bidan bisa bertransformasi, meningkatkan kemampuan diri, mengikuti perkembangan khususnya di bidang teknologi kesehatan. Jadi nanti selain kita paham ilmu kebidanan, kita juga paham teknologi kesehatan. Ini sesuai dengan visi Kemenkes untuk melakukan digitalisasi di sektor kesehatan sejak awal kehidupan sampai dengan lansia. Next. Ada beberapa hal yang bisa kita kerjakan di era ini. Kalau tadi dikatakan telemedicine, saya mencoba membuat, kenapa kita nggak buat telemidwife mungkin ya. Ya tetap, tapi harus balance, ketemu dan menggunakan mesin, ya. Telemidwife service atau layanan telemidwife ini kita bisa melakukan layanan berbasis teknologi, kemudian kita membangun link dengan instansi lain yang berhubungan dengan bentuk layanan kebidanan, ya, instansi-instansi lain, supaya bisa berkolaborasi dengan baik, tidak hanya bidan saja kita berdiri sendiri. Kemudian mungkin bisa kita membuat ruang online, ya, ruang online bisa bagi remaja, bagi ibu hamil, kemudian ibu balita dan anak prasekolah, kemudian mungkin dengan masyarakat lain yang nantinya bisa membantu pelayanan atau penyelesaian masalah kesehatan tanpa harus bertemu secara langsung, seandainya memang sungkan, kalau orang Jawa bilang ya, seandainya memang sungkan untuk bertemu dengan bidan, tetap layanan kesehatan bisa kita berikan kepada masyarakat dengan bantuan teknologi. Ya, dengan bantuan teknologi yang sudah terbuat di era 4.0. Jadi itu rekan-rekan sekalian, artinya next ya, yang bisa kita kerjakan di era sekarang, artinya saat ini fokus kita tentunya tidak hanya untuk mendorong proses digitalisasi layanan, namun juga bagaimana mencapai keterhubungan, ya, mencapai keterhubungan sehingga tercipta keterpaduan dalam penyelenggaraan pelayanan kebidanan. Jadi keterhubungan atau connectivity ini bisa membuat suatu kolaborasi yang baik satu dengan yang lainnya. Ya, bukan bersaing tapi kita berkolaborasi. Terakhir, next. Nah, rekan-rekan sekalian, saya simpulkan demikian uraian singkat yang bisa saya sampaikan. Peran bidan dalam upaya promotif preventif bidang kesehatan ibu dan anak di era society 5.0 ini adalah memberikan asuhan kebidanan berbasis teknologi. Jadi kita bisa memberikan asuhan berbasis teknologi dengan tetap memperhatikan sisi kemanusiaan. Kalau di era 4.0 kemarin seakan-akan peran manusia itu sudah berkurang gitu ya, namun kenyataannya tidak. Kita masih tetap perlu memperhatikan sisi kemanusiaan, karena ibu hamil, apalagi yang hamil pertama ya, tetap memerlukan sentuhan kita sebagai bidan. Ya, teknologi bisa kita gunakan sebagai alat atau sarana. Kita manusia atau bidannya tetap merupakan aktor utama. Jadi itu yang bisa saya sampaikan secara singkat rekan-rekan sekalian, bahwa saya ulangi bahwa di era 5.0 ini kita tetap harus menyeimbangkan antara teknologi dan sisi kemanusiaan supaya ya kolaborasi bisa berjalan dengan baik dan kita pun bisa bekerja dengan baik, memberikan layanan yang goal utama kita bisa menurunkan angka kematian ibu dan angka kematian anak minimal di negara kita. Demikian lebih dan kurangnya Bapak Ibu, rekan-rekan sekalian, saya mohon maaf apabila ada hal yang tidak berkenan. Saya akhiri. Om Swastiastu, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang. Saya kembalikan kepada Bu Eka. Terima kasih.
Ya, terima kasih Bu. Oke, menarik sekali ya paparan dari Bu Wayan tadi. Sekali lagi kata kuncinya tadi Bu ya, kolaborasi ya, dan kembali kepada sentuhan manusia, bahwa we have some tools, we have some devices, but still human is the main actor. Kita harus ingat bahwa manusialah yang paling utama di sini. Jangan sampai semuanya mengandalkan ke mesin gitu. Oke, now it's time for the Q&A session. Waktunya tanya jawab. Silahkan teman-teman, Bapak Ibu juga boleh. Jika ada yang perlu ditanyakan, boleh ditulis di chat box atau langsung bisa raise hand. Ya. Kira-kira kalau anak sekarang itu kan ketergantungan pada alat-alat digital itu sangat kuat sekali Bu Wayan. Nah itu gimana itu kira-kira?
Ya, betul Bu Eka. Tidak ada anak sekarang.
Sambil nunggu pertanyaan dari yang teman-teman Bu, mungkin bisa ditanggapi.
Kita ya tidak ada anak-anak sekarang yang tergantung sekali sama.
Suaranya kok nggak keluar ya Bu ya?
Tes.
Ya, udah.
Kita pun juga tergantung sama gadget. Tapi kembali seperti yang tadi Mem Rachel juga bilang bahwa apa yang ada kita tidak boleh mengesampingkan sisi kemanusiaan ya. Jadi dua-duanya harus balance, harus kita sempatkan untuk menyampaikan supaya balance semuanya, baik penggunaan gadget maupun sentuhan dari kita, bidan khususnya. Saya bilang kalau kita mau bicara tentang asuhan kebidanan, gadget oke, tapi bidan harus tetap memberikan sentuhan dari sisi kemanusiaan. Karena kan tidak hanya anak-anak aja yang tidak butuh screen, ibu hamil, ibu yang lain, remaja pun tidak butuh screen. Mereka butuh sentuhan. Mereka butuh sentuhan semua. Itu menurut saya,
Jadi harus menghilangkan sudah tidak mungkin ya Bu ya. Jadi menyeimbangkan mungkin ya. Sekali lagi diseimbangkan. Oke.
Seimbang.
Dosen nggak bisa lepas dari gadget juga soalnya ya Bu ya.
Betul.
Iya.
Jangan anak-anak. Kita juga kadang memberi contoh begitu. Iya, nanti anak-anak misalkan padahal ibunya juga pegang HP aja. Anaknya yang disalahkan. Nah, itu
anaknya disalahin.
Ya, pelan-pelan kita seimbangkan. Karena diimbangkannya kita tidak mungkin. Ya.
Back to basic gitu kayak. Monggo teman-teman mahasiswa mungkin atau Bapak Ibu dosen ada yang mau mengajukan pertanyaan? Mungkin jamnya ini sudah mendekati jam-jam kritis, Bu ya.
Ayo adik-adik. Nanti door prize-nya dari Bu Rita di Pak Bu Ika loh yo, enggak ada.
Door prize-nya HP flip Samsung terbaru ya. Okay, come on, girls. Pertanyaan boleh bahasa Indonesia, tidak harus bahasa Inggris.
Jelas mungkin, Mem. Malah jelas.
Sudah jelas ya, sepertinya.
Ya.
Oke, sepertinya sudah jelas kayaknya Ibu, karena ya teman-teman kita sebagai digital generation itu juga saya kira pemahamannya terhadap penggunaan media digital juga sudah mulai menyesuaikan dan mereka sudah tahu bahwa sesuai yang Ibu katakan tadi bahwa tetap harus diseimbangkan antara penggunaan digital dengan human touch tadi. Dan saat ini bukan saatnya lagi berkompetisi ya, Bu ya.
Betul.
Tapi berkolaborasi. Oke. Kalau tidak ada lagi pertanyaan, sudah tidak ada pertanyaan, mungkin bisa saya sampaikan sedikit kesimpulan dari presentasi Bu Wayan tadi, bahwa peran bidan dalam Society 5.0 itu terutama adalah memberikan human touch dalam pelayanan kesehatan, karena tetap manusia adalah komponen utama dalam kehidupan kita. Dan ada 3 kemampuan kunci dalam Society 5.0, yaitu kreatif dan berpikir kritis, komunikasi, dan juga kolaborasi. Dan karena kita sudah masuk dalam Society 5.0, tentu saja bidan sebagai pelaksana, manajer, pendidik, dan peneliti harus dapat memperbaharui diri dan menyesuaikan diri dengan kondisi yang ada. Jadi kemampuan kita harus selalu ditingkatkan untuk memberikan pelayanan yang lebih sempurna.
Ya,
itu saja mungkin kesimpulannya. Terima kasih Bu Wayan atas presentasinya yang luar biasa. Semoga bisa memberikan insight yang baru terhadap bagi teman-teman kita dan semua yang ada di sini, dan kita bisa memperbaiki diri seperti yang Ibu bilang tadi ya, harus terus dan terus memperbaiki diri, menyesuaikan dengan kondisi yang ada. Siapa tahu setelah ini ada Society 6.0 Ibu ya.
Betul.
Oke, terima kasih. Demikian presentasi dari Ibu Wayan. Kita akan ketemu lagi di webinar-webinar yang lain ya, dengan topik-topik yang lebih menarik lagi. Saya kembalikan, ya sama-sama Ibu. Saya kembalikan ke MC,
Ya.
Miss Wanda. Time is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Niwayan. And as an appreciation from Health Poltekkes of Malang, we would like to present a certificate for Mrs. Niwayan. Here, the certificate.
Terima kasih.
Selanjutnya, sebelum acara ini benar-benar ditutup, akan ada sesi foto untuk para tamu undangan dan juga seluruh partisipan. Mohon untuk menghidupkan fitur kamera karena sesi foto akan segera dimulai. Sebelum itu, kami himbau untuk para peserta mengisi link absensi dan link evaluasi yang sudah dikirimkan pada bagi panitia yang bertugas. Sesi foto dipersilahkan. Loh. 1, 2, 3. Halaman kedua. 1, 2, 3. Halaman ketiga. 1, 2, 3. Halaman terakhir. 1, 2, 3. Baik, terima kasih. Hadirin yang saya hormati dan seluruh tamu undangan, demikianlah kuliah tamu Prodi D3 Kebidanan tahun 2022 siang ini. Mari akhiri acara ini dengan mengucap mohon maaf. Ini saya umumkan kepada mahasiswa yang aktif dalam bertanya dan dengan pertanyaan menarik, kami menyiapkan door prize. Yang pertama, selamat kepada Yasmin dengan NIM 002 dengan pertanyaan, babies needs humans, not screens, but reality is that nowadays many parents give cages to their children who are still babies. What do you think about this? Dan yang kedua, selamat kepada Wita dengan NIM 007 dengan pertanyaan, can the concept of society 5.0 be a solution to society's problem? Untuk nama-nama yang telah saya sebutkan tadi bisa menghubungi panitia HMP. Terima kasih. Ini yang saya hormati dan seluruh tamu undangan. Demikianlah kuliah tamu Prodi D3 Kebidanan Malang tahun 2022 siang ini. Mari akhiri acara ini dengan mengucap syukur kehadirat Tuhan dengan berdoa. Berdoa dipersilahkan. Berdoa selesai. Kami mengucapkan terima kasih kepada hadirin yang telah meluangkan waktu dan berkenan hadir sebagai dosen tamu program studi D3 Kebidanan Poltekkes Kesehatan Malang siang ini. Saya Wanda Haryanti Syafitri selaku Master of Ceremony. Mohon maaf sebesar-besarnya apabila ada kata yang kurang berkenan di hati para semua yang hadir. Tidak ada gading yang tak retak dan tidak ada sesuatu pun yang sempurna. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih Bu Eka.
Waalaikumsalam. Oke Bu, sama-sama.
Semuanya Bu Aya, kita Bu Ika dan semuanya panitia. Terima kasih.
Iya.
Tes. Ini daftar hadirnya kok bisa ya Mbak ya, Mbak Wanda. Nanti
Sudah bisa kok Bu. Ini tadi saya bisa.
Oh iya.
Ya.
Terima kasih ya Bu Eka.
Iya Bu. Izin live ya Bu.
Terima kasih.
Ya.